Thank you. Thank you very, very much for joining us this morning. First sessions, always, hopefully we can leave you with some energy to kick this off. My name is Benedikt Wahler. I'm a managing partner at something called Consumer Centrics, which might be a little odd in development space, but one of the key areas of our work is in inclusive finance, where we've done 70 projects since 2014. And today you'll hear about one thing that we're very excited about, which is engaging with young entrepreneurs and trying to make the situation of access to finance for young entrepreneurs and businesses led by them a little bit better. And the session today will have essentially three components. First, we'll hear a little bit from my colleague Daniel about what we find from as experiences so far. And then we go here with four representatives into the panel. Today joining me are Peter Billig from EBRD, Associate Director and responsible for the Youth in Business program in the Western Balkans. We have Axel de Ville, Head of Strategy at Luxembourg's development agency, ADA. We have Katarina Straljevic, I hope that I got that right, who leads the efforts on sustainability at ProCredit Group. And we have Ana Cantera, the CEO of the microfinance institution Altamodos in Montenegro, one of the earliest members in this program. So we want to kick this off with some insights, and for that, Daniel will take the lead.
Thank you. Good morning. What a great day yesterday, I think. I hope you had such an amazing learning curve like I had. It's my first time here, actually, and I am very happy about the first day. So let's start off for the second day and see that we can build on this. I'm going to stand over here because I'm going to use a few slides now just for an initial intro presentation, talking about why should youth actually matter to all of us. So my name is Daniel Arnold, and I'm a partner at Consumer Centrics. I actually started that company 12 years ago, and when I started it, I still fell in this category of young entrepreneur that we're talking about today, which means entrepreneurs that are under 35 years old. So I could talk a lot about the challenges of young entrepreneurship, but instead of that, I'm going to talk about why we all should care. I'm pretty sure that many of you share the motivation behind EBRD's support for young business leaders, because without them, we couldn't achieve an inclusive and sustainable growth model. Today, what we want to emphasize is that it's not just a topic for the corporate social responsibility program, so to say the CSR, but it's really a topic for the CEO. So it should matter to him. 2.5 years ago, when EBRD, as the first DFI in this area, decided to launch a dedicated program for young entrepreneurs, we faced the challenge that basically we were looking out there and nobody knew anything about them. There was not a lot of data that was age disaggregated. There was little research done about this. And we look globally, really, right? Because we started out looking at best in case examples from anywhere in the world. So EBRD, our teams at Consumer Centrics and our partner company IPC, we started to do our homework. And as you can see from these numbers here, we've done quite a bit in, I think, up to now 17 countries. We've engaged with a huge number of stakeholders, with entrepreneurs, with the ecosystem at large. And then what we did is taking our conclusions and actually testing them through social media with entrepreneurs. And we wanted to make sure that whatever we came up with in this research isn't just, what they tell us, but it's actually what we can observe in their behavior that they really care about. And we had a few quite interesting insights by doing this. So basically, it all boils down to at least 4 good reasons why we think that executives should care about youth in business. The first one is really about numbers. It's about the strategic importance, the relevance they have for the micro and SME banking, and due to the important structural trends that we can see, this will only increase in the future. For the second one, they're lucrative. Contrary to what we see in stereotypes, young business leaders can be an attractive segment if you address them purposefully. The third reason is there's actually a very strong upside to them, because right now it's not too late. They're still underserved. And those of you who will make the effort, they can actually benefit from the first mover advantage. And fourth, last but not least, what we see, and I think it's a very obvious one, but still very, very important to mention, youth really are the agents of change, right? So they are the ones that are shaping the future of SME banking. If you want to ignore them at your own risk. Okay, so let's dive into these 4 reasons. I want to give you a bit of insights into each of them. First, when we look at them, the numbers are really clear. Youth in business are already of strategic importance today, and all this, the structural trends that we see suggest that this segment will gain even more importance in the future. What we saw in our research is that the share of young business leaders in the entire business community is very close to the share of young people in the adult population. If you take Central Asia, for example, you can see that on the left here, it's 45% of all MSMEs. That means nearly every second business is run by a young entrepreneur. And if we look at Serbia, which is from all the countries that we've looked at, the oldest one, then we still see that you have 21% of all businesses are run by young entrepreneurs. So let's keep in mind that this doesn't actually include any startups. So this is really about entrepreneurs that are actively participating in business life. They're hiring people, they're contracting services, they're fully part of the economy. So in many emerging markets, this age cohort, if we look at them, they continue to grow. If we look at Morocco, for example, we're looking at 9% growth that's forecasted over the next 10 years. And another thing that happens at the top of the age pyramid, and that's also very important to consider in this aspect, is that the number of those thinking about retiring and handing over to the next generation is rapidly increasing. We're looking basically at a coming wave of family business successions that will really boost the number of youth in business over the next coming years. And that's true for basically all of the countries we've looked at. So now let's look at why you can and why you also should make money with this target group. The word young, what we see often evokes some sort of worries about startups and businesses with little substance, maybe. In the worst case, it's maybe something like people just came back from a party out last night, right? But what we find is that there really is substance. Of course, many young people are ideating and starting businesses, but among those already up and running, around half have been in business for longer than the famous 3 years that supposedly most bankers want to see the results for. If we look at their age, more than 4 in 10 is what we see at the moment. In Morocco, it's even more than half of them are already in their 30s. So we are talking about people who in business, in life, they really have quite a bit of experience already. They've been shouldering a lot of responsibility, and they're not what is the first thing that crosses our mind when we think about young entrepreneurs. We also see that there is a range of structural features of these clients that may mean they do not necessarily come at a higher cost, but they might actually offer better revenues. So they're digital natives. They had very limited relationship with banks very often. And in practice, what this means is that if you use social media, digital channels effectively, you should be able to acquire them at a lower cost. You don't have to invest as much to poach them from your peers, or you can keep them from being lured away easier. Serve them and their transactional needs with low-cost channels. And for those digital businesses who actually have, for those who have digital businesses, you can actually collect data that you can use for credit assessment. At the same time, they should offer a higher value for a longer lifetime of the client relationship, right? Because they're still young. And with the many cross-selling opportunities that you actually have, as they're building out their lives, you have a lot of opportunities to to encourage them to use their social media so that they also promote your institution to their friends. Okay, let's look at the third reason that we have here. The market level figures that we see, they identify actually a very strong upside. The good news is that there should be really a lot of opportunities to seize. if you get serious about this now and if you act as first movers. The young business leaders, they are eager to grow. And when we ask them about wanting to take out a business loan in the next years from a formal financial institution, not from family and friends, or using the internal cash flows, what we heard is that large majorities of them said yes. So if you take Central Asia for this, for example, it was around 70% that said that they would like to take out a loan from a formal financial institutions within the next 3 years. But on the other hand, what we see is that only 1 out of 5 at the moment is using bank as their primary means for funding. So there's a huge gap in there and a big opportunity. We also did ask them specifically about loans for investments, and you can see it here is orange on this slide. And we asked them about working capital loans, which you can see is black on this slide. And then we asked them, what size of loans do you want to take out? And of course, we did control that for any sort of like crazy high numbers. So we corrected that. If that were numbers that no bank would ever give them based on the business numbers that we saw from them. So if we take these numbers and we multiply them about the loan needs and comparing it to the young business leaders, what they told us about their current loan, then we see really a very massive untapped opportunity. If you take Central Asia, for example, YIP unserved loans are more than 100 billion euros, around 10 times more than the loan those clients have currently or receive currently. So typically, we see ranges between 6 and 22 times of the upside based on the research that we've done in these countries. And let's keep in mind, that's not really just business loans. Not yet it doesn't include what they need for their lives, for car leasing, for home improvement, for education for their children. And there's a lot more that they need because they're in this initial stages of building up their life. With this, moving to the 4th reason, the time to act is really now. Don't wait another 5 years or 10 years, right? Because already today, young entrepreneurs are the future of SME financing. Young entrepreneurs, they're the main agents of change who will reshape the rules of the game, is what we really can see. On one hand, they decide what offers and financial service providers can actually use online. Think about all of this topic like merchant payment acceptance for example, right? Buy now, pay later. Product insurance at the checkout. There's so many things, and many of them have these businesses where they're actually offering the services, right? So they're in the driver's seat for these services, and it's part of driving the change in retail, for example. So question is really, are they going to take your offer that you're giving to them, or are they going to take your competition's offer, right? And on the other hand, as early adopters of the digital financial services, they are the main target for fintechs, of course, and any other institutions that are looking to enter your market. So many of these ones that enter actually live and breathe already like digital finance for business, right? So there's definitely a risk that if you're not catching up with that, then somebody else will. So in other words, as well on the offensive and on the defensive, there's offensive and defensive reasons why there are key battleground for leadership around the SME financing market. And it's really not in 10 years, and I want to emphasize that once more, but that's what's happening today and in the very immediate future. So if you're a financial institution that's already ahead of the curve in business banking, can you sit back and say, great, we're handling this? Or do you just now go to your marketing team, you order a new billboard campaign with young people on it? Maybe not. There's really good reasons to make the effort and draw up a really dedicated approach for use in business, because we've seen they're different. Not only do young entrepreneurs have many fewer ways to meet the financial and business challenges that they have compared to their older peers, but what is probably the most distinct feature of young business leaders is this, in this very specific life stage, is what we sort of are describing now as the times of first times. Because out of all of this research that we've basically done, and if we aggregate that and looking into all these insights that we have, that's really what makes the difference towards older entrepreneurs. And this time of first times is something that concerns them in business, but it's also in their private and personal life. So these are the years when the course is set professionally, privately. It's also about things like getting married, becoming parents, setting up a household, getting the business to run. And then also when you run a business, it's learning to lead older employees, for example. It doesn't come naturally, right? I mean, that's something that they're really struggling. They have to learn. And then figuring out how to deal with business administration, all of these topics. So it's a time when things become a lot more complicated and there's a lot more responsibility to shoulder. There's more expectations from others, there's new risk, new costs. And this is all without being really prepared for it. And it often feels very overwhelming for them. So this is basically the sort of permanent mental background against which they make their decisions. But the upside to this is that many of these first times come with a need for funding that complements the mere business finance aspects, right? So there's home improvement loans, car leasing, consumer finance around childcare, all of these topics. So what could it mean if you want to start tomorrow joining EBRD and getting really serious about young entrepreneurs? The times of first times may sound like a little bit much psychology on the first glance, but it has really real life consequences in how young business leaders think about what they want from financial institutions. It's not merely about loans, but really a much wider value proposition. In the top things that we found in the research that they hope to see from financial institutions, it's training, advice, networking. So in short, non-financial services really. And also insurance came up quite high. Insurance that would help them carry the risks that they keep, that really keeps them up at night. So often the things come well ahead of the classical business loan. Let's keep that in mind, because if you want to address them, that's their perspective. That's what really matters to them. So this is really the most digital savvy generation, but they also want a strong face and a name, a person they can trust that helps them with all of these overwhelming challenges. And that someone should not send them to another part of the institution when it's about their family. So when it's about their family finances, and not their business, right? So a more holistic approach for from financial institutions is really what could be very, very relevant to them. And finally, it's about what we see and call empathy and respect for them. It's a time where much of the world looks still very skeptically at them. And financial institutions should overcome that and really address them and take them serious, building up a relationship over time to get to a point where clients are ready to really take out loans from them also.
Okay. Thank you very much for that introduction. Gives us a flavor and a little bit of a background for what we're now going to hear are the life experiences in the program and beyond the program of Youth in Business. We'll actually start the round with a question to give brief background on your organization and how it links to young entrepreneurs, and what was the motivation and the expectations that you brought to this segment. So Daniel said this kicked off 2.5 years ago when EBRD put it on the agenda. So Peter, what was behind that?
Thank you very much. Thanks, Benedict, and thanks for inviting me. I mean, first to set the scene and explain what European Bank for Reconstruction and Development is. Well, in the sense of the name, it's a multilateral development bank, which started in the early 90s. I mean, the first objective was pretty much to help ex-socialist republics to transition from centrally planned economies to market-based economies. Now, over the years, the mandate has improved and changed a little bit also in terms of the scope of operations that we cover. So we no longer, as a bank, work in Europe, but also in Caucasus, Central Asia, Southern Eastern Mediterranean region, and we'll soon expand to Sub-Saharan Africa. And in terms of the impact we deliver, we no longer focus just on the transition, but also on the qualities that define a well-functioning market economy. And one of them is making inclusive, making the economies more inclusive. And certainly the support for young entrepreneurs is, underneath that umbrella. Because as we all know, as came out of the presentation as well, is that young entrepreneurs on average face struggles. They are disproportionately affected when it comes to access to finance, and actually leveling the playing field helps define more inclusive societies. I think we are also touching upon a more broad term when it comes to the inclusion of young generation overall. I frankly think we haven't done well as a society over the years. If you just look at the numbers of youth, young generation, in the countries where EBRD operates, if we let's look, for instance, just on the Western Balkans, which we have some of the speakers on the panel from, they know well that brain drain is a key issue. In the Balkans for the last 10 years, 300,000 people left. Young individuals are on average 2 to 3 times more likely to be out of the job market. Yeah. And actually one of the ways how they try to integrate themselves into society is by, setting up a business. And I think as a development bank, if we are true and honest to the mandate, we should give them a helping hand. So that's pretty much the motivation. And when it comes to expectations, again, elaborating what you mentioned, is that we believe that if we approach this segment with a holistic offering, we may have a very good chance of showing that this is a segment that's worth considering in the long term. And exactly just changing the narrative from just a CSR initiative to bring the topic of financing entrepreneurs to the boardrooms. And we've developed an offering that basically brings us very close to local financial institutions in the market where we operate, whether they are microfinance institutions or banks, and we give them support for 3, 4, 5 years. We finance and with other components that have the ability to give them a very solid and strong business case that if we leave them alone for the next generation, they will actually continue doing and banking this segment going forward. So that's when it comes to the motivation expectations.
Super. Thank you very much, Peter. Axel, you work well beyond the European neighborhood. How do young entrepreneurs come up in your work? What is your journey to this topic been so far?
So ADA is a Luxembourg-based NGO active in emerging countries with a focus on Africa, Central America and Southeast Asia, and indeed a bit out of the regional scope that you are focusing on. Globally, and since the beginning, youth was a topic for ADA. We have tried several, and I say tried, several programs with a diversity of financial institutions, microfinance institutions in Togo, in Burkina Faso, in Rwanda, in Mali, in Senegal, and more recently we started working with incubators, and it's definitely difficult, more difficult than regular inclusive finance. At the same time, when you consider these countries, the demography and the percentage of young people is tremendous. It's a political issue, political priority. And in terms of development, it's basically investing in the next generation, investing in a stable and innovative future. You mentioned the digital aspect, and this is why, yeah, we try since the beginning of ADA we have that as a component, and more recently, it even become one of the 3 strategic topics of ADA. Youth entrepreneurship, youth employment are really important for us, and I'm glad to share a bit the input, the comparison that we have in with the region. But basically, we are talking the same language as you are doing in your region.
Super. Katharina, what was it that brought ProCredit, and who is ProCredit, maybe for some of those in the rooms who haven't heard you, even though you are in a lot of places, and what brought you to this topic? What caught your interest?
Okay, so ProCredit Group is a group of commercial banks that is operating in Southeast and East Europe and in Ecuador, and we are focusing on micro, small and medium enterprises. So that is our core business, and we are basically focused on development. So our focus always has been sustainable finance, focusing on green transition, focusing on development and financial inclusion. of the companies in our regions. And definitely topic of youth has been really important for us. It is somehow logical continuation of our different programs that we have had throughout the years. So firstly, we have been working on green finance, where we have 20% of our portfolio, total loan portfolio is green lending. We started working on financial inclusion for women and working on promotion of women in entrepreneurship. And then somehow youth came as a really logical next step, because we realized in the markets that this is a really important topic. Not now to enter into this risk of repetition, because so many reasons and motivations have already been said by colleagues, but definitely brain drain has been one of the reasons that is affecting our regions. As Peter already said, more than 300,000 of young people have left the region, and this is leaving the labor market really vulnerable in the sense that also affects us as a company, but also our clients. And definitely is a topic that we all need to work on and tackle it in a way to promote this environment that will help young people thrive in our countries, in Western Balkans especially. And this is why in one of the banks in North Macedonia, actually, we have started this program. So it is still not rolled out to the whole group, because we want to pilot it there. And actually, thanks to your support, EBRD and Consumer Centrics, we have entered into this. But now, beyond this just impact, or let's say ethical reasons or philanthropic, this is really a great business opportunity, and it has been already presented by Daniel. We are focusing on supporting MSMEs and actually investing in young entrepreneurs who are really severely underserved by banking sector, and we also did not understand them previously. And this is really opening us right now access to additional client base, but also investing in the future clients and who will work together with us on long term and grow together with us. So that would be motivation and also a bit of outlook.
Thank you very much. Anna, who is the institution that you've built over the years, and what happened, what was going through your mind when Peter and his colleagues showed up with this topic, youth?
Yeah, that was really interesting, but because I think that policy statement was not still finished when Peter approached to us and with the idea what would be if Altermodo start implementing such program as the Youth in Business. And at that moment, we had no clue in Altermodo how much clients do we have in that segment, actually, how much entrepreneurs are in age up to 35. And then we laugh, 35, they're still young, you know, maybe we should put 25 and so on. So then we realized that in our portfolio, 27% of clients were young entrepreneurs, young MSCs, owners of MSCs. And then you done your part of job and research regarding the needs and so on. So we somehow realized that it's good what we are doing through our regular programs, regular products, but we are not satisfying or trying to help entrepreneurs to satisfy their other needs, which are not financial needs, other needs which are pretty much connected to be successful in implementing funds in their businesses. So in one hand, you can be in need for funds, but from the other side, if you know how to use that fund in a proper way, with some advisory services, with some support, with some additional ideas, that's the good match. In the end, entrepreneurs, especially real entrepreneurs, always finds the funds, but the use of funds is very important. So I think the program is, the best part of the program is that is matching financial benefits and financial benefits. And that's something which actually inspired me, you know, that I was very cautious and said we will not start with implementation until we have a clear strategy where and how we will go with implementation. It's easy to take the funds from EBRD. I know that we can place that amount easily since we have 27% of clients, young entrepreneurs, but we will not reach additional value for them without clear strategy, without recognizing what are their additional needs and how we will, with connections, with cooperation with other institutions and so on, satisfy them. So that was something that was very interesting for me and my colleagues how to, and interesting how we will adjust internally in Alter Modus and prepare for serving better our clients, not specifically young youth entrepreneurs, but overall clients, how we need to be flexible internally in organization and to adjust, let's say, knowledge and attitude of our employees regarding their needs. That is something that Daniel mentioned, that we need to respect them, you know, and to get them serious. Even if they are young, they could be, everybody was young once, you know, so you need to respect people at all. And you need to learn, especially experienced loan officers, to respect young people, you know. That was very important for me internally, what is additional value for Alter Modus also.
Great. And so in this next round, I actually want to come back to some of those things that have already happened. And maybe we'll start with Peter. What are the components to live up to those expectations of the participating institutions? What is it that you put on the table?
Thanks. Indeed. It's a holistic program, but before we drafted the program, we indeed had discussions to test first the appetite, whether there is enough, there are enough institutions to even, join the journey with EBRD on this. And, like with everything, in order to solve a problem, you need to understand it and understand it really well. So we first started with a market assessment, and thanks to you, we managed to, I think, do the first holistic assessment of what the real problems are when it comes to the access to finance. And I think what came out quite clearly that there are like two sets of key issues. We can, link them into or umbrella them under, let's say, supply side issues and then demand side issues. What I mean by supply side issues are the issues connected with the provision of financing to young entrepreneurs. When we asked, or when you asked on the ground, young entrepreneurs, what are the key issues with the financing, they say things like high interest rates, too long process to get the loan, too high collateral requirements. So that obviously shows things like banks and microfinance institutions are pricing them with high risk. The time to the market and time to yes means that they really don't know how they should approach the assessment of those companies. And asking for collateral is also connected with the two, right? And given the fact that they don't have the collateral, they usually are not eligible to get the loan. But I think young entrepreneurs themselves, and that comes back to the demand side of the problem, is that they recognize themselves, they don't have enough skills. So they said, well, we would like to get more training in understanding the financials, how we should do the financial, the bookkeeping, how we should present it to banks. But also what came out is the opportunity for networking. I mean, they have built their networks, but at a young age, you still need to get that missing piece in the equation, or knowing someone who gets you to your supplier, who gets you to your ultimate customer. And that is one of the missing pieces that are limiting young entrepreneurs to get to the next level. And with that understanding, we came out and provided a program. And that program has 4 key components. I'm not sure whether there is an opportunity to show it on the slides, but just, I'm going to cheat a little bit and use 2 slides quickly. But just for the sake of audience, for the sake of reflection, is that those are the key 4 components on the left side, starting with the finance, where EBRD as development bank, as a bank on its own, provides financing to banks and microfinance institutions on the local markets, which helps to increase the liquidity and actually provide the specific financing for young entrepreneurs on the market. Second, which is in the gray area on the bottom left, is the credit enhancement mechanism. What it means in plain English, it means that we want you, as a bank and a microfinance institution, go out and finance the specific target group more, in more depth, in more numbers. And in order to do that, we understand that you have risk and reservations, and we give you protection. And that protection will be in the form of us sharing a loss in case it happens, or we give you performance benefits, right? If you target or if you grow your own portfolio by X amount of %, we give you a cashback. So these are the ways and incentives how we can incentivize the banks to do and finance this segment more. Then we not only say that just go out and finance them, we are saying we will give you guidance. So that represents the component on the top right. and that is represented by Consumer Centrics and IPC, that provides a holistic support throughout the program. So from the moment we sign loan agreement to the end and maturity. And that component that helps pretty much the banks understand the segment pretty much starts by a status quo analysis. Where are you? Have you ever banked this segment? What is, as Anna was mentioning, what is the share of young individuals on your books currently? Where do you want to get to? And laying out, let's say, a roadmap of how to get there. And the last component is reflecting of the gaps on the market that young entrepreneurs mentioned themselves. And this is the advisory that comes directly to support young entrepreneurs, meaning that banks, through the help of EBRD and through the help of consultants and microfinance institutions, can provide trainings, networking opportunities, visibility opportunities, so that entrepreneurs themselves get the opportunity to enhance those skills. And ultimately, that helps them to run their business better, but also service their loans better, which in turn improves the repayment ratios and lowers the NPLs. So that program, I think, has had reasonable success. I mean, on the next slide, we will see that we have been operating in majority of the countries where we are for almost 2 years. We started off the program in the Western Balkans in 2022, and we also are operating in Morocco, Egypt, and the Central Asia region in Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and Mongolia, and we will soon launch in Turkey. There are also the numbers that represent the success so far. I mean, what we should look at is that these numbers should be viewed against the backdrop of COVID, which hasn't really helped to push the banks to finance this risky segment, and also against the backdrop of the war in Ukraine over the last 2 years, which also made the banks being a bit more reserved in terms of the riskier segments. But despite those two facts, we have now the program running in 13 countries. In those 13 countries, there are 23 institutions that are under this program, and 8 of them are microfinance institutions. So this, I think, program is well placed for both microfinance institutions and banks. And 175 million is now the amount of financing that was provided by EBRD to our partner institutions. Out of that amount, 6.3 thousand loans were provided already. So these are the loans that came to the pockets in terms of numbers of young entrepreneurs. And some of them are also entrepreneurs that receive financing for the very first time, which is, I think, the most impactful metric of the program itself. And around 1.6 thousand of these entrepreneurs already received some form of training in terms of the financial support. They visited some networking advice, which again helps them bring their businesses to the next level. And last but not least is the amount of NPLs, because that's pretty much number one topic when it comes to this program, when we pitch this program to banks and microfinance institutions. So what is the risk? How much cost of risk do we need to put aside in provisions? And I mean, 0.1% is at the moment the level of NPLs. I mean, if I'm a risk officer, I will be jumping for joy. But I think this is something that first is representative of a program not being fully materialized. And second, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say, but I would like to see the number higher. Because if the number is higher, we see that banks and microfinance institutions actually going a bit beyond the level of the comfort zones. I think these numbers so far represents that the banks and microfinance institutions so far have been dealing with the clientele that they've banked so far. But frankly, I would like to see the number a bit higher.
So talking about comfort zones, Anna, you were, if I see this correctly, the first of those 8 MFIs to actually join the program.
Very correct.
What have you done so far that maybe has moved you beyond the comfort zone, the things that you were doing before anyway, as Altermodus?
Well, I think that we give the opportunity to new clients and that we use this program for, let's say, testing how flexible could we be with more riskier clients. Well, we are dealing with risk segment of the market in the end as an MFI. That's something why we exist as microcredit financial institutions. So that's not that strange to us, but give us opportunity to see how lower could we go with and accept more and more risk. So our figures are pretty much different compared to this, because I'm measuring portfolio at risk over 30 days and it's 1.45 regarding the youth in business as a program. And on a level of Altermodus is 0.65%. So let's say that by statistics that we are more ready and to let's say invest in riskier businesses. What is important for me is that we realize with implementation of the program that all young entrepreneurs are not the same, and that we have sub-segments within them which are pretty much different with different needs and different attitudes. And some of them are more riskier, some of them are less riskier, even if they are very new in our loan portfolio and new as a clients. So like 1/3 of our clients are the founders of their businesses. 1/3 are founders with partners. So they are the less riskier because they already think about the risk and they are sharing investment in a new business with some friends and so on. But 1/3 are successors in the family businesses or successors in some other business. Those are the most interesting for me because of period in Western Balkan that we have transition and successions in businesses. So companies are like 30, 35 years old, 25, and we have new generations. And usually companies are not structured as companies, but like entrepreneurships. And the relation is not between the company and the bank regarding financing, because it's already exists and they are stable, good companies in the market, but relation is between the owner and the bank. You know, so now when somebody from the family, usually daughter or son, are continuing with the business, there is no trust between the young manager and the bank, because they trust the father or mother, the previous founder of the business. That's very interesting for me, but because it's risky for those businesses. They can go down and they can not succeed with transition because they do not prepare their companies as organizations. You know, they want to transfer in the same way, and now you will be an entrepreneur. It's not possible. You need organizational transformation before the succession. And those are the most important for me segment, because we are talking about companies which survive like 2 economic crises, pandemic crisis. So they are very good companies as a companies, but organization of those companies is not very well. And that's where some let's say TA project could be designed for companies which need organizational transformation, and then to transform and introduce management, because usually they educate their children to be managers. Usually the owners and founders are not educated to be managers. They are not, they are businessmen or businesswomen in a sense that they have a vision, they have idea, they are entrepreneurs, really entrepreneurs. But, and then they are looking where their gaps, personal gaps. So you will study business, you will study something which is connected with, you know, their children usually serves to the business. The first child in a family is a business, you know. That's true. I'm talking honestly today. And if you want to be a part of the family, then you need to study business, even if you like art, you know. And then somehow you're in the next line to be a manager of the business, and nobody trusts you. Everybody trusts you to your mom or your dad, who are the founders. That's for me very interesting. And if they are 1/3 of the clients, young entrepreneurs or owners of the MSCs, then it should be supported by advisory before transferring the business, to reorganize, to build a real organization, and then to choose a real manager. It doesn't need necessary to be daughter or son or somebody from the family.
And it's really exciting to hear that even in a microfinance institution, you see such a strong presence, because actually that is coming up next to some of the components
like,
under TA.
Like 93% of companies in Montenegro are micro companies. So let's say that majority in Montenegro is micro. And I need to analyze that because I'm doing this business.
Katarina, at ProCredit Holding, you joined later, so you're newer in this progress. What is it that you and your colleagues in North Macedonia, which is the pilot organization in your group that's implementing within business, are thinking about to do under the program to differentiate, to do new?
So we started this year, so still we cannot share so many numbers and then results because it's very young program for us. But definitely colleagues have been working on this topic already on some non-financial services. So basically, we have structured our approach to non-financial and financial services. Of course, financial services, I mean, both services have been developed based on the market study and all the research that has been done together with Consumer Centrics and IPC. And then we have learned what are the needs and what are the characteristics of those clients. So in order to develop and design really services that will cater to those needs. So on the non-financial services side, we have been working on co-working space. So we have launched last year actually already Hive, which is a co-working space where young entrepreneurs, startups can come and establish their business. So we have been developing this program jointly with MasterCard and Kipu, our group's IT company. Then we have been advocating with other business incubators and accelerators in the country in order to provide really a lot of accessibility to young entrepreneurs to access their programs. So we have started these networking events and just enabling the access to young entrepreneurs to those kind of opportunities. On the other side, it's already second year now that the bank has organized a hackathon. So it's been organized, I think, 2 weeks ago or 1 month ago, and 120 young entrepreneurs from North Macedonia participated together with 20 mentors, and it's been really successful event which opened so many opportunities for them. So coming again back to the networking needs that were mentioned previously, but also this needs to access more knowledge and more mentorship, because of course, young people, they can have education and university studies, but these mentorships from real life, from other companies that are already successful, is something that brings this real life experience. In addition to this, we have been working on different, let's say, knowledge building events. So many seminars and programs for education on financials, on accounting or AI in business, empowering of women. Again, this intersection between gender and youth topic, which also is really important. So these have been some of the non-financial services that we've been working on. On the financial side, it's been a bit more, let's say, concrete. So we have launched a startup package, which is a offer of account to young entrepreneurs, to startups, and it's free of charge. So normally our account services have certain fees for use, but we recognize that in these early stages of businesses, additional costs can also be a burden to the companies. And then if we can play our part and add there, we will. So we actually eliminated those costs for maintenance, but then also for transaction fees. So it's not always about loans, but also other services that we as a financial company can provide. And then again, on the loan side, we have created a special offer that is reducing collateral requirements, actually eliminating them, and using some other sorts of tools that can support them. And so far, the answer and response from the market has been really nice. I unfortunately cannot share numbers because we are really on the early stage, but as you can see, everything is about communication and being really close to this market in order to understand the clients and their needs. I forgot to mention, for example, by opening account, you also get 6 months Spotify free subscription, which is something interesting, is something that young people like and enjoy. And then we can also access to new clients through these kind of things. So that would be, let's say for now.
Super, thank you. So we've heard non-financial components, including some marketing partnerships with people that are in their mental space. We've heard about the importance of non-financial services, but also about really this breadth of subsegments that you find all the way from startups to very well-established companies that are being handed over. Axel, how does that compare to what you've done so far and your experience in markets beyond Europe?
I mean, it definitely resonates in terms of topics and vocabulary and the words that you are using. The context we are working on is I would say, a bit more challenging due to the level of education, the financial infrastructure of these countries. What we learned is that it's really important to define the market niche you are targeting. Is it, I mean, starting young entrepreneurs? Is it micro? Is it SME? Is it so defining what type of amount are they looking for? And based on that, as it was mentioned before, you need to define a specific approach. It's not just do the same as for the rest of the clients. And there I would mention two elements. I mean, in terms of innovation, you need to innovate. That's one thing. Innovate in terms of financial services. We combined credit and savings, and it was amazing. In a country, the program was mainly to push and to support credit for young people, and the results that hundreds of loans have been given, thousands of savings accounts have been opened, and that was very important to combine credit and savings. We also developed revenue-based funding over 3 years, which is in microfinance, it's usually a year. Now it's longer. And so you have to be innovative in terms of financial services. You have to be innovative in terms of non-financial services and financial education, and also, for example, develop tools for accounting. Having accurate data is another challenge. And we test a program where, I mean, a provider, there is a company providing an accounting tool, a simplified accounting tool, but that's not enough. You need to provide coaching as well. And when you combine that, it might make sense. It's not easy. So you need to innovate, you need to test, and definitely the data is critical. I remember a banker in Senegal telling me, I mean, among the funding requests we get from young people, 80% of the files, we just open the first page and we just close it, and it's over. Because the first data that you see doesn't mean anything. And it's really challenging to be able to set up accurate data and also to develop an accounting system or that might be very basic for micro entrepreneurs that should be more elaborated for registered small companies and so on. So these are very, so it's really important to have that approach. I like your approach because it's a program that comes with all these combined elements. In the future, who will offer these services? And that's the key two questions I have in terms of offer. And that's what we are struggling with in some situation. Who is able to provide these services? Microfinance institutions, banks, financial institutions, okay, they have the capacity to develop a specific products and so on. They need to do it strategically. All the non-financial services is very difficult to find good players able to do that. It might be training centers, incubators, other type of entities. 25 years ago, we thought, okay, I mean, the MFI can provide that. No, they can provide to some extent financial education, and that's it. For the other services, you need to find really specialized entities. And then if you find them in terms of offer, okay, who is providing that? And then the next question is, who is paying for that? And then I'm going back to the market niche. If it's a very young, small, micro, starting young entrepreneur, you need donations, you need public subsidies, you need, I mean, that type of funding to cover that. If you're targeting already established small companies, registered ones, and so on, I'm not talking about startups, but I mean, a bit more mature, you might think about, okay, them paying some of the service. We have a partner in Burkina Faso. This is what they do. They use donations to, I mean, to start the first services. And when the business is growing, they ask the entrepreneur to pay for the service. And they have a coach to coach them in terms of non-financial services. it's and I think it's really it's a moving process. There is no one recipe that you can just apply for all your clients.
Yeah.
And this is why it's really important. I'm glad to discover your experience in your countries, that it's really a choice to say, okay, we want to cover that market niche, and therefore we define a strategy to approach it, and then services, etc.
Thank you very much. I think this really resonates in terms of building a relationship and seeing young entrepreneurs across these various stages of the life cycle, and then finding solutions and for each moment, right? So that you that you can keep justifying it after the support of the DFI runs out. But for other DFIs that maybe kind of want to follow in the path, Peter, what would you give as advice for them onto the journey to tap into young entrepreneurs as a segment in the rest of the world?
I think the advice is that you really have to tackle this segment holistically, but more importantly, you should focus on the sustainability angle of it. And I think what Axel mentioned really resonates with me, because indeed, you identify the problem, you provide solution for the problem. But if you provide a solution on a temporary basis, meaning that if we as EBRD come in there, we provide support for 5 years, and then after 5 years, 60% of the institutions are not really following through on this program, then we have accomplished nothing, right? We wasted on the funding, we wasted the time of everyone, we gave false hopes to young entrepreneurs, and then, they're no longer the interest. So indeed, that's why every time we look into this program, and with every institution, this is the conversation that I encourage our consultants and banks to have on a daily basis, how to make every offering that they put forward on a sustainable basis, meaning that what, in their view of microfinance institutions bank, is something that they can internalize. What are the activities that they need support from third parties like ecosystem? That's why banks and microfinance institutions are usually building some networks. And then at the end of the day, who's going to pay for it? Yes, that's the key question. I think for the time being, and for the period of testing and piloting it, I think it's justifiable that donors spend the money, and EBRD is looking into spends the money. But going forward, some share needs to be borne by ultimately the recipients, right? The young entrepreneurs themselves. But we see that this is working. Look at Italy. Italy is based 70–80% on successful businesses. Like, those are businesses, mostly SMEs, that are being taken over by young entrepreneurs, individuals. And yes, they pay for the services, but banks already have ready-made offerings. So they offer the tax advisory for inheritance taxes. They help young entrepreneurs take over the business. If they have an idea how to make it more agile, more IT-friendly, they also support with them. But yes, they have to pay for it. But those businesses are also ready for it, because this is not a company that's undergoing its first change, but maybe fourth or fifth successful change. And what also Anna said resonates well, because indeed, the Western Balkans, and frankly, any country where we operate, will go through this change, especially in the countries where from the 90s, the first wave of entrepreneurs started their businesses. This is exactly the time when they're retiring. And they should, right? For after 30 years, they deserve a bit of a rest. But then the question is, who takes over and who drives the business forward? And mostly it's still the children. Businesses are not really frequently being sold left and right. That's not really what the market is at the moment. So it's on the shoulders of the young generation. Sometimes they don't want to really be in the business, and sometimes they're really forced to be in the business. So I think the ecosystem needs to come together with the banks, us as development bank, and other ecosystem players. But it's really, really, really difficult to tackle this segment. And that's why EBRD at the moment is the only IFI looking actively targeting this space. And before closing, I would also like to say that this program wouldn't be able to be running without the support of donors. Actually, Luxembourg is one of the donors, and Sweden is as well. We have Italy supporting the program, and the European Union as well. So we have 4 key anchor donors supporting this. And I think it's the reflection that young entrepreneurs and the entire problem of the young generation is in the minds of the donors. And also it's a reflection of what we are doing is probably that we are on the right path of solving it, at least certainly when it comes to some of the young entrepreneurs.
Okay, great. I think there was really one important aspect indeed that we heard several times today, which is indeed when we think young, not just startups, but this big topic of the family succession, because what we found in the supply side research, there's a lot of shiny object kind of attention to incubation, acceleration, a lot of banks doing their fintech hubs and whatnot, but there's very little preparedness of the level that you've just brought as an example that's been seen in Italy, and that probably also needs more DFI attention. Now, back to the practitioners, what are the external and internal challenges that you've run up so far, and kind of that could be recommendations for other practitioners out there for what to look out for?
Well, let's say that some internal challenges were how to prepare staff regarding the communication with young entrepreneurs, since their, let's say, language or slang is pretty much different compared to adult generation, older generations who are especially working for years, especially in our institution as loan officers. And from the other side, their expectations regarding digitalization, because those generations are expecting too much to be digitalized that we can offer or we are allowed to offer in digital way. So from one side, we are not that friendly with digital solutions. From the other side, we have some restrictions regarding the regulations to use that much digital solutions that exist in the market, but we cannot use them for, let's say, identifying client to signing loan agreement and so on. So we have some obstacles because of regulation from one side, from the other side, because our loan officers like in-person contact with the clients and they want to see the client and to, let's say, assess the character of the client in person and not in digital way. New generations, digitalization and all solutions digital for them are not the tools like for me, their lifestyle, and that's completely different approach. For example, when I talked with my son, he's 17, he said to me, I don't know how to approach the girl if I don't send a request or something on Instagram. For example, first is Instagram and then they can meet in life. You know, I was really surprised. He's 17, so his life is partly virtual life. That's not a tool. That's a lifestyle. That's completely different. I will install Instagram if I need to on my phone, and then I follow some and ask him, what is this, what's that? You know, so that's the tool. That's when you are using something to finish something or to reach something in your life. But when you are doing that because it's your lifestyle, then you're expecting different solutions from financial institution which is serving you in financial needs. And there is, let's say, some mismatch between the client's expectations when we are talking about youth in business and our preparatory as financial institution and our employees, our staff, how to serve them. That's, I think, the most important challenge. Everything else regarding the skills, technical skills, let's say managerial skills and so on, that could be organized because we are also using webinars and so on. But how to organize the workflow, that's not the change of the let's say tools, that the change of modus operandi of institution. It's not changing. We will change, you know, now we will sign on tablet, not on a paper and so on. That's how we will change in our minds, and that's not easy.
Thank you very much.
Because we need to serve, let's say, currently is 30% of young entrepreneurs, 70% are not, and they're expecting different service, traditional, in which we are expert, for example. And it's very expensive to have at the same time both. Even if we will have a regulation, which we do not have in Montenegro, I need to develop everything and to employ new people with new attitude to serve young customers and to have parallelly both of them. It's impossible operationally, you know, it's not sustainable. So it's tricky. We are in some period of transition. In my belief, in 10, 15 years from now, it will be like 20% traditional in business, and we will have some new modus operandi. But currently, we need to do that transition in time, not earlier, not too late, just in time.
And starting with your staff, I think that's very relevant. One thing that we hear often is like, our loan officers can't talk to them. They say, I run a pop-up store or I do drop shipping. And loan officers are like, what is that? And so indeed, some of the things that we've started also with Altermodus in Montenegro is not just training on empathy to have them understand what are young people about and how do they think, but also about these new ways of doing business, that there's no longer this incomprehension. What are the challenges that you've come up for that you'd expect now to have to deal with?
Yeah, so basically first to understand, the segment, because as Anna already mentioned, it's not the traditional banking and not traditional client profile that we are dealing commonly with. So basically to understand, and I think this initial market research has been really important, and then to also translate this to all the colleagues and to the institution, and just actually also to have this training and to have institutional understanding of those needs, and then to adapt our services towards them and our communication, and definitely to develop these products and services towards them in a way that is flexible and that is innovative and digital, because these are the ways that young people are focusing their business. So that's been one of the challenges that colleagues have changed, that has been somehow hard, but actually also really exciting and rewarding for them, because it opened so many ideas how to actually transform also traditional business, because it's not only doing this youth in business program, but it's also something that you can learn and then transform into overall way of doing business. That's been a challenge. And definitely colleagues have shared that they have overcome it through partnerships, which has already been mentioned here, but definitely thanks to EBRD and Q, but then also other institutions. So building these partnerships with GIZ, with some of the business accelerators or incubators in the country, but also with the universities, where they can also come and find young people and start this relation and also learn from them. So that could be somehow mitigation of those challenges that are related to communication and understanding of the needs.
Goes back to what you said earlier, that kind of we need a village. It takes a village to raise these young entrepreneurs.
But I'm very happy about what I hear here, because it has been years we are pushing that topic of youth, and often, I mean, and working in the region we work, I mean, investing in Africa, it's risky. Investing in or supporting inclusive finance, inclusive finance is risky. Investing and funding young people, it's risk, that's too much. No, it's not. It's risky because you don't know. Because as a funder, as a bank, you don't know, and then you feel it risky. And I'm glad to see your loss ratio. Indeed, it's too nice. But even if you multiply it by 10 or 20, it remains manageable. So indeed, it's maybe not realistic, but at least it shows the way. It's possible to make it. And that's really what I see is that, it's possible to make it. And I will take what you just said, partnerships. And partnerships, for me, is the key to make it sustainable. As you mentioned, we need to have that, and we need to bring that topic. Please put it at the UN level, put it at the EC level, EU level. I mean, that's really important. That, and also the players and the banks, private sector, saying, okay, I mean, nobody trusts the young people, but we need. It's not an option. Let's do it. It's a must, and it's possible. I mean, players like you and us, we say, yes, it's possible. And so there is a wonderful potential. The market is there and not served, definitely.
Thank you very much. Great note to end on. I wanted to look to the organizers if we still have a moment. We're not yet quite at 15, 1 minute at least left to take questions from the audience. Is that okay? I don't see Fernando, I don't see Sam. We'll just do it. So, sorry, the lady was up first with the hand. Yeah, that's you. You're on the... Yeah.
Just a very quick one, because we talk about inclusion, and inclusion is a response or adapting to diversity. So I'm wondering, sometimes I hear when we say young entrepreneurs, it sounds like we all put them in the same box. So how are you adapting to the diversity within the young entrepreneurs? Because there are so many different needs, whether it's a woman, but also rural, less educated. Yeah, so that would be my question.
Maybe a quick thought reflecting back on the research. So yes, we've grouped here a lot because we found some commonalities, but within youth, between startups and someone taking over their parents' business is a huge set of diversity. So when we then work with the institutions, we normally dive to the level of around 5 life cycle segments, life cycle of the business that they're in, and around 6 personas that help us imagine how they are different, what they are about. And then because the way it's driven towards, yes, we want to do inclusive finance, but at the end of the program, EBRD wants the banks and the MFIs to continue doing it. The conversation is which of those segments are the ones that really appeal to you strategically and commercially as an institution. So it's here, maybe you would err more on the side of putting inclusion top and center. Here we try to balance it out with making sure that these institutions go on. But indeed, the conversation goes then to the level of the sub-level, doesn't stay at just they're all equal. I don't know if...
And what is possible in some market, what you can offer. Maybe the needs are there, but you cannot satisfy, and there is no possibility to satisfy some identified needs. It will be maybe in a couple of years from now, but currently, you're focused on something you can do the best you can in cooperation, because there is no offer in a market. It's not always easy.
And in a European context, just to reflect a little bit, I think a big part of how we see the job is getting them into the formal system and the local formal system to start with. Because in these EU adjacent markets, you have the Revoluts and the Wise and the other guys of the world coming in. And young entrepreneurs are aware of them. But if they bank with them, we're never going to get to that vision of where we're locally collecting the data, where they're part of the local ecosystem, where you establish relationships that then on which we can build a much stronger level of inclusion. That's part of kind of how we look at the challenge. So I think Ada was done. Please.
Yeah. I'm Rafael from Oxfam also. My question will be, can you describe your entrepreneur person? Like which is the client, like you are serving the size of the loan, like because the entrepreneur spectrum is really wider. And then you have the SME, that's the SMEs, or you are saying the micro. So which are the characteristics of those specific personas that you're trying to reach?
Do you remember the numbers? Yesterday we looked at the page. I think for the likes of Alta Modus, it was like 3,300 or so?
Up to 10,000 euro and up to 48 months maturity of loan. It's for entrepreneurs. Regarding the MSCs, it's through the classical product that we have for MSCs, and it's up to 50,000. But concretely, Youth in Business is for entrepreneurs, and it's up to 10,000. But the average loan size is 3,000 euro.
Yeah. And in Bosnia, I think it was 4,000, and in Serbia, it was like 15 or so.
It's indeed, I mean, the program doesn't set any limit. The only limitation of EBRD is that you can only go out and finance someone who's in the age bucket of up to 34 years. When it comes to the size of the ticket, when it comes to whether it's on the minimum or maximum range, we don't set any limits. When it comes to CapEx, OpEx financing, yes, please do both. So the only limitation here is with the age. And that is obviously at the point you're making a credit decision. Unfortunately, we never stay 34. So there might be cases that you already have finance an entrepreneur at 34, but the loan matures at 38, but that's completely fine. What matters is the point of the credit decision.
And it's like the minimum, like it can be just an idea, or they have to be like a running business at least for a period of time, or
It could be startup, with the idea for the business. It could be business which is already developed by the entrepreneur.
And maybe from the perspective of EBRD, we are saying that this program should help you market and finance some of the segments that you previously declined. We are at the same time not saying that go out and finance every startup on the street.
Yeah.
No, we are saying that you should still go and make your decision. But in case you have an entrepreneur where you see a potential, but it doesn't have collateral, this program should help you bring that entrepreneur to the level of your comfort zone, right? And that could be a startup, that could be a more established business, etc.
In the space of startups, I think we need to also be honest. It's not the job of fiduciary duty deposit-taking institutions to bet on early-stage businesses. Angel community, the VCs should be doing that, but that goes back to the partnerships, right? Then that this program helps create that reach out and build the partnerships with the universities, with the incubators, so that you onboard businesses as early as possible. And those that come to you, when you say, okay, sorry, you're not yet at the stage, you know who to turn them to, who to turn them over to, point them out to.
That's through these financial services, you can bring them to the level that is level of risk that is acceptable for you as a financial institution, and that you can then serve them with lending. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the insights provided. I'm Erdal from Frankfurt School. So the design of this youth in business program is pretty much similar to EBRD's flagship Women in Business program. But during the initial design stage of Women in Business program, one of the key focus for EBRD was actually increasing female labor force participation through entrepreneurship, but also through employment. My question is, have you ever tested the hypothesis that, young entrepreneurs tend to employ young employees more in these 17 countries, especially considering the fact that, young unemployment is a serious problem in countries like Turkey, Egypt, Morocco. And my second question, especially for Katarina and Anna, it's about the disaggregation of your portfolio, because EBRD's definition in this case is pretty much simple. That's, you can disaggregate your portfolio based on age of the entrepreneur, but age is a dynamic. So the entrepreneur you have defined as young today may not be young tomorrow. So how are you, establishing a system to monitor your portfolio over time?
I mean, we haven't measured that impact yet. What we've seen indeed is partly also due to the emergence of these new ways of working and new business models. Indeed, they, just like women, and I think there's been much research into that, tend to be more open to employing women. We also see a similar trend for young people, that they're more open to this, that they feel more connected with like-minded people and who speak the same language, so to say, have some of these new business skills, but we don't have reliable data on that. I think that's fair to say.
On the topic, if I may, we used to work on youth entrepreneurship for years, and since 2 years ago, we are now creating a program, Green Jobs for Youth, which is supporting existing well-established SMEs to promote and encourage them to integrate young people, because we know that these young people, either they will stay in business or they might create their own companies afterwards. And then you solve many non-financial issues that you have if you fund them directly. So it's very, I would say it's automatic that when you are supporting youth entrepreneurship, at one point you will think, okay, what about youth jobs? And that's very complementary, but it's different. And be careful, you need different approach and different strategies for that.
And maybe to close out the gentleman's question, we didn't design the program with the aim of improving, the levels of inclusion of youth in the labor force. It was EBRD, but also tested by other MDBs. They had programs where they incentivize companies, mostly established SMEs, for employing young individuals for a period of time. But that has not proven that successful to me, because usually after the period of time, after 3-4 years, they just, either the, people left or they were fired. And people, especially at the young age, they like to test jobs, so they usually, it's not that common that they stay in one place, especially at the early stage. So what we focus on is the young entrepreneurs themselves, to actually improve their access to finance, access to skills, and actually bring this topic to the boardrooms of our financial institutions. I think there will be, to some degree, an implication on the level of their participation in the labor market, because I think on average, young entrepreneurs tend to employ their peers or younger individuals. So I think they will bring that benefit along, but that was not the key objective of it.
And then,
the data.
yes, regarding the data, we are reporting at that day with the calculatory data actually who is under 35 at that reporting day. So it's not connected with some program. You potentially client could use the program Youth in Business and be at the reporting day over 35. It's not young entrepreneur anymore. So it's a calculatory data.
So for the purposes of the line, right, the EBRD definition is really like when the loan gets issued.
Yeah.
But I think in terms of how we discuss
It's important
internally,
it's approval day actually to satisfy that criteria, but regarding it could be 48 months tenor of the loan, so it could reach.
but with the approach, how it's discussed, it's not as harsh in terms of a cutoff rate. And it's really, once you get relationships, I think it's about staying on them, which normally, and also in your instances, the emphasis not so much on subsidizing now something, on leading on price, but really on everything else that you've heard to establish the relationships and then keep it going. And that hopefully leads to the continuity.
Thank you. I have so first, Nida Krasnici from the Council of Europe Bank. I have a question for Peter, actually. First, how do you select the financial institutions you're working with to ensure that, the market is well covered and you're serving everyone? And secondly, with the credit enhancement measures that you have under the program, are there any affordability considerations taken into account or, imposed in a way to the financial institutions in a way to ensure that the funding that the young entrepreneurs receive are more affordable?
Thank you for the question. The first one is very imperative and very important to me personally, because when we're running the program, our aim was exactly to select partners, not based on their preface of taking this as a CSR and PR opportunity, but actually thinking long-term and sustainably in this segment. And it's not easy to find, because this has not really been at the level of their sustainable strategic discussions. When actually we started to discuss in 21, 22 and bring this topic to our meetings, there were various reactions, including we were laughed at, we were, told that we might be a bit crazy when we believe that this is something that we can achieve. But in every country, as you can see on the map, and particularly in the Balkans, where we launched it, I think at the moment we have the highest number of loans. We managed to find institutions that really mean to be sustainable about this. So we have at least one per country. We have actually two in Albania, and we look to at least onboard additional one in every other country, so that we also create some level of competition. And in the beginning, it's always difficult, but once we get some results, especially like after the next 2 years, I think we can bring forward also a solid business case for the rest of the PFIs, and sooner or later they will follow. If you look at, again, Italy or more developed countries, there's a clear trend that will also happen in these countries. And the sooner the financial institutions get there, understand, prepare their offering, and build a relationship with young entrepreneurs, the better for them ultimately. Because, and elaborating on what Benedict said, yes, at the beginning when they are young, and they can't stay young, unfortunately, and we kind of won't stay young, unfortunately, is at the time that, especially with this program, you can afford not asking them to contribute financially so that it makes it sustainable for you. But at the later stage, when they are at the point of 40+ years, when they've built the business, when they're taking care of the business, at that point, you can also ask them to cost share a little bit into your business case. And can you please elaborate on the second question in terms of the affordability?
So we know that loans many times, I mean, especially the last years, are not very affordable. So interest rates are very high, which makes it difficult for smaller entrepreneurs, especially young ones, I suppose, to have access to the loans, or, you know, maybe they prefer to obtain funding from family, friends, and so on. So do you address this? Do you make sure that the interest rate becomes a bit more affordable, or in total the package?
Understood. Thank you so much. We don't. And the reason is that EBRD has the premise that market-based, if there is a well-functioning market-based economy, it will take care of itself. So we obviously mentioned this in our meetings, that we would like to see the level of the interest rate, ideally at the level of what you offer to the market. But ultimately, we are not in position, or we don't mandate it for a policy statement or a loan agreement and set a maximum cap of interest rate. Now, what the market has actually shown, and maybe Anna can elaborate, is that the interest rates are usually at the level of what they're offering to their more mature companies. At the same time, they ask for less collateral, and sometimes they also add the benefit of having a higher grace period or longer tenor. And that is mostly due to the incentive provided through the program of the first losses cover. So that to my view, is enough incentive to make the banks and microfinance institutions commercially minded and offer something that is competitive. Because at the end of the day, even with this, and I think if you still are under this program but offer too high interest rate, I don't think that your uptake will be as high as otherwise.
Yeah, I completely agree, because research actually shows that they are not have problem with interest rate. They have a problem with documentation that is asked by the banks and with collaterals. So those are the two main issues for the young entrepreneurs and generally entrepreneurs. So they're ready to pay, because margins in entrepreneurship are pretty much large, and they can pay the interest rates, but they cannot serve the additional asks from the traditional financial institutions like banks. And what is most important to understand, if you have subsidies regarding education and training, subsidies regarding collaterals, subsidies regarding interest rate, you need to do a lot of adjustments to see if your business is sustainable or not sustainable. You need at least to have some component which is like for the other place in the market, because with a lot of subsidies, is your business in the end really good business to continue, or to find your happiness in some other business? You know, you cannot have subsidies in everything, like we can't, you know.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you for coming. Thank you for paying attention. And we hope you feel inspired that indeed in the future there are more programs that take this segment into their focus, because as you've heard today, we believe it is the future of business finance. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.